Good. So, day. Program.
Reviews. Star Trek, Picard Season 3 Episode 2 Review, Disengage. Star Trek, Picard reveals Jack Crusher is exactly who we thought he was, but what does it all mean? This Star Trek, Picard review contains spoilers. Star Trek, Picard Season 3 Episode 2. Despite the fact that Star Trek, Picard seems to have finally realized that what the people always wanted from this series was a mature version of Star Trek. The next generation that wrestled with maturity, legacy, and the way even the closest relationships can change over the course of a lifetime. The series continues to be plagued by pacing issues in its second episode. Disengage is an hour that not only takes forever to reveal a plot twist we all pretty much guessed last week, but it's also full of the sort of glorious table setting that isn't particularly fun to watch. It's difficult to imagine that the episode that includes the long-awaited return of the next generation alum Michael Jordan features a brief but wildly emotional, and entirely nonverbal reunion between Jean-Luc Picard and Beverly Crusher, and reveals that the two had a secret love child that Picard never knew about could be boring, but it's kind of true. Part of the problem is that Ed Speleer's Jack Crusher isn't a particularly compelling yet, and the idea that he's being chased by a powerful enemy because he's just a charming roguish smuggler who loves his mom. While one to assume there's more to his story than we currently know, there's also every indication this show is going to take its sweet time unraveling whatever that is. Next off English, United States, 360p 720p HD 1080p HD auto, 360p, about, lower, 18, on the plug, she demands Jack, until Picard finally, whether they or we like it or not. To be fair, Picard does its best to position Jack as a sort of Han Solo. Whether she demands Jack be handed over for various crimes he supposedly committed in her territory, and Titan's Captain Shaw doesn't hate the idea, as it would save his crew from what is likely certain death. If Jack's been breaking the law outside Federation space, on the plus side, this is also an hour that features plenty of action, as the USS Titan dramatically returns just in time to defend the Crusher's ship from attack by Amanda Plummer's clearly villainous Vatic. She demands Jack be handed over for various crimes he supposedly committed in her territory, and Titan's Captain Shaw doesn't hate the idea, as it would save his crew from what is likely certain death. If Jack's been breaking the law outside Federation space, it's not really his problem. Until Picard finally puts the pieces together that Jack is his son and pulls Admiral rank, and suddenly Jack is everybody's problem. Whether they or we like it or not. To be fair, Picard does its best to position Jack as a sort of Han Solo-esque freedom fighter doing his best alongside his mother to bring medical supplies to those in need. It seems fairly obvious that Vatic's designs for Jack go well beyond punishing him for something as simple as smuggling. The episode's insistence on dragging its feet is kind of boring. Thankfully, Plummer's over-the-top performance is absolutely ridiculous, scenery-chewing way that often categorizes the best sort of sci-fi badass. Complete with a truly atrocious attempt at a French accent. What does she really want? How does she know so much about Picard and Shaw? Who knows, but I'm looking forward to finding out. Read more TV Picard Season 3 Episode 2 Easter eggs. The best Star Trek. Unsurprisingly, Raffi's story remains the weakest part of the episode, and of Season 3, thus far. She spends most of the episode trying to find out why Starfleet has terminated the investigation into last week's horrific terrorist attack. Her undercover work leads her to believe that the low-level Romulan criminal Starfleet's trying to blame the tragedy on was most likely not responsible, and she's furious when her hilariously dry handler insists that she back off, i.e. disengage, get it, from the investigation. In a completely predictable twist, Raffi does not in any way do that and instead insists that she's going to find out the truth on her own. Which is, on the surface, an absolutely noble effort, and something we'd expect from pretty much any Starfleet officer. But, at the moment, this storyline seems so utterly isolated from everything else we're watching that it's hard to care about what the answers are. It doesn't help that Picard has pinned a subplot on the weakest character remaining on the canvas. Yes, it's obvious that this terrorist plot will inevitably somehow intersect with the Picard/Jack/Vadic storyline. A fact that's made even more clear by the sudden appearance of Worf to rescue Raffi after she's forced to fall off the narcotics wagon in an attempt to prove her street cred to a Ferengi source named. But that doesn't make what we're sitting through any more interesting. And even the addition of Worf, and it should be noted that Michael Dorn looks great. Welcome back, sir. Isn't enough to stop this subplot from sapping every ounce of momentum from the rest of the episode. Multiple people's heads get cut off and it's still incredibly difficult not to immediately fast forward whenever the episode switches back to the storyline. Sure, it raises plenty of tantalizing questions. In intelligence now. For whom? And if not, how did he just happen to show up in time to rescue Raffi? And, perhaps most importantly, what does any of this have to do with Jack Crusher and Jean-Luc Picard? Considering Disengage doesn't even feature a conversation between Picard and Beverly, we probably aren't going to get the answers to any of those questions anytime soon. Which, hey, I get it. Let's find out how the next generation's most popular will they / won't they romantic relationship somehow had a secret child together in the years after Star Trek. But with just a handful of episodes left in Picard's final season, it would be really great if we could get into the meat of the season's larger story and how it all connects sooner rather than later. Top stories about Kinetics V278859. Read more. Diablo 4, When to Sell Gear and When to Salvage Gear. Written by Lacey Bauer. Lacey Bauer is a digital producer by day, but a television enthusiast pretty much all the time. Her writing has been featured in Paste Magazine, Collider. Picard Season 3 Episode 2 Easter Eggs. The best Star Trek references. The latest episode of Picard Season 3, Disengage, features plenty of Easter eggs and references to other parts of the Star Trek universe. This Star Trek, Picard article contains spoilers. Part of what makes Star Trek, Picard Season 3 so compelling for old school TNG fans is the endless love these episodes have for the 90s era of Trek. But the references and Easter eggs actually go way beyond just the next generation. In fact, what makes the season so interesting when it comes to the deep cuts is the fact that some references extend way beyond the Star Trek universe, and into other fandoms and franchises. So, with that in mind, here are all the best Easter eggs we caught for Picard Season 3, Episode 2, Disengage. Next off English, United States. 360p 720p HD 1080p HD Auto, 360p, about Kinetics V278860 about Kinetics V278860 Explore more Star Trek, Defiant 46:51 Star Trek, Lower Decks, Canon or simply Cartoon Star, 05:03 Star Trek, The coolest collectible cards on eBay 07:18 Star Trek The God Thing. The Star Trek movies that never. 01. 18 Forgotten Films. Star Trek Time Traveling Reptiles 01:24 Catching Up with Roddenberry Entertainment 09:52. The Shrike hiding in the Star Trek logo introduction. Since Strange New Worlds, the new shows have opened with the Star Trek logo, complete with whichever ship is the star of the particular program. But there are sometimes small Easter eggs lurking in these intros. For example, in the Lower Decks intro, there's sometimes a koala hidden in the nebula. For this episode of Picard, Captain Vadick's ship, the Shrike can briefly be glimpsed in the intro as the USS Titan warps around. Starchild by Baby. Jack Crusher, Ed Spillers, is jamming out to a 1974 track called Starchild by the Texas-based band Baby. This band did not last and isn't particularly famous, but this track is totally killer and Jack clearly has good taste. Jack Crusher Jr. Although nobody mentions it outright in this episode, though maybe they will in a future one, the new Jack Crusher is obviously named after Jack Crusher Sr., Beverly Crusher's late husband. In The Next Generation, we learned that Jack Crusher died under Picard's command on board the USS Stargazer. In the bonding, we even learned that Wesley Crusher blamed Picard for the death of his dad. Jack's name clearly has a lot of baggage. Thanks, Rios. Jack identifies the SS Helios as a Mariposa medical vessel. This references the 21st Century Mariposa Medical Clinic run by Dr. Teresa Ramirez in Picard Season 2. Because Rios stayed behind in the 21st century to help Teresa with humanitarian aid, it seems like this type of medical vessel might exist, indirectly, because of Rios. Romulan Ale. Jack tangos with some Fenris creatures in this short flashback, and briefly, they talk about taking Romulan Ale as a bribe. The bottle style of the Romulan Ale is identical to the same bottle Bones had in the Wrath of Khan, which is when we first learned about Romulan Ale. Riker and Picard's shuttle is called Savik. The shuttle that Riker and Picard took from the Titan is revealed to have the name Savik. This is a blink and you'll miss it Easter egg, just as the wreckage from the shuttle flies at the screen. Savik, of course, references the 23rd century half-Vulcan half-Romulan protege of Spock, first introduced in The Wrath of Khan. In that film, Savik was played by Kirstie Alley, and then later by Robin Curtis in The Search for Spock and The Voyage Home. In the backstory of the USS Titan, revealed by Paramount's official Logs Instagram account, it turns out Savik was the captain of the first USS Titan, which predates Riker's Titan and Shaw's Titan by almost a century. In this episode, gold models of all three Titans are on display in the briefing room. Also, having shuttlecraft named after former captains of previous versions of your starship is an old tradition. In the TNG episode The Most Toys, Data flew a shuttlecraft called Pike, which, of course, references Captain Pike, an earlier captain of a different enterprise. Get the best of 10 of delivered box. The Titans rescue SS Helios. When the Titan warps in at the last second to save Picard, Riker, Jack Crusher, and Beverly, the moment is very reminiscent of when the Enterprise E warped in to save the Defiant from the Borg in First Contact. Even the angle is similar. Captain Vadick's IRL lineage. If Captain Vadick's chair seemed reminiscent of General Chang's giant Klingon chair in the Undiscovered Country, it should. The chair is very similar. Maybe Vadick borrowed it from General Chang? In real life, the actress who plays Vadick is Amanda Plummer, the daughter of Christopher Plummer, who played Chang in Star Trek VI. Picard's synth body. Vadick mentions that Picard is in the synthetic flesh. This references the fact that Jean-Luc was reborn in a synth body at the end of Picard Season 1. Notably, when the Titan tries to beam everyone over from the Helios, all the lifeform readings scan as human. Picard's synth body truly does pass for flesh. He's like a replicant. Only better. Isolytic weapons. Lieutenant Mura, Joseph Lee, a Bajoran, mentions that the Shrike is rocking a huge arsenal, including isolytic weapons. This references Star Trek Insurrection when Geordi explained that isolytic bursts are basically subspace weapons. Jack Crusher's aliases. All of the various false names that Jack Crusher has used over the years are hilarious. But the biggest reference here is James Cole. That refers to the protagonist of 12 Monkeys, played by Bruce Willis in the 1995 movie and Aaron Stanford in the sci-fi reboot. That version of 12 Monkeys also starred Todd Stashwick, who plays Captain Liam Shaw on this season of Picard, and was produced by Terry Matalas, the showrunner for Picard Season 3. Aaron Stanford cameo, James Cole returns. Later in this episode, Aaron Stanford, James Cole himself from 12 Monkeys, appears as the Ferengi crime boss Sneed. He even refers to the drug that he offers Raffi as Splinter, which references the time travel tech from that show. Stanford also starred with Patrick Stewart in X-Men 2, where he played Pyro. However, he doesn't share any scenes with Stewart in this episode, since Werb, cuts off his head. Jack's crimes. When Picard is grilling Jack, he says that Jack is wanted for organized crime on Andoria and terrorism on Biner 3. Andoria references the home world of the Andorians, and also the Enar. Meanwhile, Biner 3 is a reference to the species first introduced in the TNG episode 11001001. Is that Sisko's baseball? When Sneed tells Raffi he's obsessed with human things, we see a baseball, which will make many Deep Space Nine fans wonder if he somehow got his hands on Sisko's baseball from DS9 itself. In the Lower Decks episode Hear All, Trust Nothing, Kira still had Sisko's baseball in 2381. But this is 2402. Could someone have stolen it? Section 31. Appropriately, Sneed accused Raffi of being part of Section 31, Starfleet's super-secret agency which was first introduced in the DS9 episode Inquisition. Section 31 also appears in Enterprise, Lower Decks, Star Trek Into Darkness, and, extensively, in Discovery. Technically, although it is referenced here, Raffi is not part of Section 31, but rather, working for Starfleet Intelligence, which, as far as we know, in the 2402 context, is not the same as Section 31. Notably, in the late 24th century, Section 31 was not as well known as it was in the 23rd century. So, it's possible it's even more underground in the 25th century. No money in the Federation. Raffi says that the Federation is an organization that doesn't value money, which references a long-standing concept in Star Trek that the Federation doesn't use money at all. Kirk joked about this in The Voyage Home. In First Contact, Picard outright said that money doesn't exist in the 24th century. But since the original series, we've known there is still plenty of money in the Star Trek future. It's just that the Federation specifically doesn't use it. In Discovery Season 3, the Orion leader Azura pointed out this hypocrisy, noting that the Federation benefits from capitalism, even if within the Federation, there's no conventional currency. The game. Sneed's Splinter drug, again, a 12 Monkeys reference, is injected into the eyes. This feels like a very obvious reference to the TNG episode The Game, in which Riker brings on board a virtual reality game that everyone gets addicted to in the worst possible way. Worf's return. It turns out that Worf is Raffi's handler at Starfleet Intelligence, which makes some of the text messages Raffi received in episode 1 suddenly make a lot more sense. This is the first time Michael Dorn has appeared as Worf since 2002 in the film Star Trek Nemesis. All in all, Worf is the character who has appeared in most episodes of Star Trek, including 174 episodes of The Next Generation and 96 episodes of Deep Space Nine. When we first see his face, we hear Jerry Goldsmith's Klingon theme, which was first featured in the 1979 film Star Trek, the motion picture. Subsequently, This theme was used to represent Werf's heroics in First Contact. We talked to Michael Dorn and Michelle Hurd about Werf and Raffi's new partnership here. Werf's weapon. Although we have never seen Werf wield this exact Klingon weapon, it was created by Dan Curry, who also designed the Bat'leth and Werf's smaller weapon, the Mek'leth. This new Klingon weapon is called a Kur'leth. Jack is Picard's son. In a twist we all knew was coming, Beverly gets on the bridge and convinces Jean-Luc to fight for Jack. Picard says that Jack is my son, and we realize that means that Jack was born sometime right after 2379, following the events of Star Trek Nemesis. This makes him about 22 or 23 years old. The blaster beam. As Picard takes the Titan deeper into the nebula, we hear the infamous blaster beam sound effect. This famous sound appeared in Star Trek, the motion picture, as the sound of BGER. Although the complex blaster beam instrument was invented by John Lasell, it was popularized by Craig Huxley. Prior to his work on making a cool blaster beam for TMP, Huxley guest starred in Star Trek, the original series, when he was a child. In Operation Annihilate, he played Peter Kirk, and in And the Children Shall Lead he played Tommy Starnes. So, when you hear a blaster beam, you're hearing the various Star Trek generations collide. Inside No. 9 Series 8 delivers its most distressing ending yet. Written by Ryan Britt. Ryan Britt is a longtime contributor to Den of Geek. He is also the author of 3 nonfiction books, the Star Trek Pop History Book Phasers. Read more from Ryan Britt.